Hello and welcome in to week 2 of predictions on TNA Sports. I'm T, he's A.
I'm A.
He's A. And we have our special guest picker B.
How's it going, guys?
She's here with us today. I do want to give a special big thank you to our editor who has done a great job of making us sound and look much better than we are. So if you heard us last week, we started with our predictions last week, and hopefully you didn't hear us, because it was awful. We did not have a good week. But if you listened, I did say you don't predict games or you don't bet money on games in week 1. But we wanted to have fun and give it a shot anyway. I don't typically do it, but I did it this year. We've had better weeks. A and B last week ended up 2-8. I ended up 3-7, which every one of those is terrible numbers. I was hoping for 50%. It didn't happen. But the way Vegas can hit these numbers is just mind-blowing. And when they're so close, I mean, one little bounce of the ball can cause you to either hit or miss, just that easy. Just one play can make the difference. And we had a lot of one plays make the difference. We'll forget about last week, head on to this week, and luckily we've got some actual football to go on as opposed to going on just reading. So it's nice to put our eyes on games and actually be able to see some stuff that we can use. That part is good. So the first thing we'll talk about things we learned in week 1. There's quite a few things we learned in week 1. First off, Georgia's still very good, guys. Really good. Georgia, the offense looked good, better than I thought it would. Defense is still really, really strong, and they wiped the floor with Oregon. That's definitely the one thing I took away from week 1. What's some of your takeaways from week 1?
I put way too much confidence in Dan Lanning knowing Georgia. There's a big difference between knowing Georgia and being able to stop Georgia.
Yes.
And way too much confidence in Bo Nix. I mean, I should have just known better. Somebody slap me on the hand right now. Don't be doing that. It won't happen in the future.
Okay, Barbie, what were some of your thoughts from week 1?
One person that I really looked at, and he's done really good in the past couple of weeks, is Drake May.
Yep.
The way he's played, he's really set himself up to be in that Heisman run.
He's definitely in the conversation.
And you kind of see why Alabama wanted this kid to start with. So
absolutely. You can tell that after seeing him, it's like, okay, I see what Alabama saw.
Exactly.
The talent is there. I mean, it's just a matter of North Carolina's got to work with him. They got to come up with a little bit. If they come up with a little bit of defense, we're cooking with gas now.
And he did this in against Appalachian State without Josh Daniels. So that even makes it more impressive. Appalachian State, they got an offense. Okay. Now I know North Carolina's defense was not great. And I really expected it to be better with Chiswick, but apparently that's going to take some time. Week 1 was not their best look on defense, for sure, allowing 61. Hey, what else you got from week 1?
Well, the SEC performed great like they always do, and I expected that. The only disappointment was LSU. Florida State is not there yet, and LSU playing in New Orleans and opening game, they just did not look like they were ready to play yet.
Even though Utah lost, I still think that they're still alive for the playoffs. I still think they're a really strong team in their division.
Yeah, I agree. You tell me that team, a 3-point loss in the Swamp, opening game's your only loss. If you win out, you're still going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's another thing. We've seen how tough it's going to be to beat Florida in the Swamp.
Absolutely. Florida impressed me. They really did. I was not expecting that much from Florida in Billy Napier's first game. So that was a huge bright spot
Speaking of debuts, I mean, you look at his debut compared to Brian Kelly. That's the reason I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly, I consider him one of the better coaches. LSU should have performed better. And Billy Napier, what is he going to do when he gets more talent in there? Florida is going to be rough.
Yeah.
What'd you think about LSU, Barbie?
They completely underperformed. Seeing ever how you say his name, Booty.
Booty. Booty.
Yeah, he just didn't impress me this game.
He wasn't going 100%. I mean, he wasn't going all out.
And you could tell.
And that's the problem that Brian Kelly had with him over the summer when he first got there. And I think that was one of those things that people didn't realize when he took the job, was that there was players maybe that don't have the best attitude. That can kill your team. Hopefully he gets that under control. All right, so those are some of the things we learned in week 1. Hopefully that's going to help us make better predictions. Can't get much worse. This week, we've got another 10 games this week that we're going to be picking. I feel a little better on some of these. There's some of them that I don't feel super confident about, but feel better just being able to have seen the teams play.
There's still a couple of rough picks in here that I had a hard time and still am not sold 100% on.
Yeah. And you have weeks like that. There was some last week I was like, ugh, I had no, like I said, my confidence level was terrible. So hopefully this week my confidence level will be up. So the first game we're going to look at is Louisville versus Central Florida. This game, Central Florida is coming in a 6.5 point favorite. It's going to be at Central Florida. Last week, Central Florida beat South Carolina State 56-10. Pretty strong performance there. Of course, that's South Carolina State, so we don't want to go, too crazy about it. And then Louisville lost to Syracuse 31-7, and what I think was, I don't know if you'd say it's an upset, but especially the score. I wasn't expecting that. Malik Cunningham did not look good through 2 picks. It's a new week. You can't judge everything on week 1. With that being said, I'm going to start with A. What you got on this game, A?
Normally, I don't take a ride on the Gus bus, especially early in the season. But considering Malik Cunningham was supposed to be one of the more elite quarterbacks in that conference, and Central Florida's playing at home, Plumlee, the transfer from Ole Miss, looked pretty good in his first game. So I'm gonna go with Central Florida here to cover the 6.5 at home.
What you got, Barry?
I think Louisville will take over in the first half, but I see John Plumlee coming back with Central Florida in the second half and just kind of taking over the game. I think people after this game, because I'm going to pick Central Florida to win and to cover, I see UCF coming back and actually winning the game in the second half.
All right, so I guess it's down to me. Unfortunately, I've got Central Florida too. And hopefully it won't be like last week, because we didn't do too good when we all matched last week. This week's going to be better. I think Central Florida is going to win. I think they will handily cover. I don't know. Louisville looked really bad last week. I kind of like John Reese Plumlee. He's a system kind of quarterback. He's real short, but he's real quick. He can definitely run the ball. I think he'll be doing a pretty good bit of that. What's shocked me was his passing. So I think he's going to have a good mix. I see Central Florida winning this game by double figures. All right, so game number 2 is Missouri versus Kansas State. Kansas State is opening as an 8.5 point favorite at home against the Tigers. So last week, Missouri beat La Tech 52-24. Pretty good showing there. They held Louisiana Tech to 11 yards rushing, which is good. I don't care what you're looking at. That's strong. And at the same time, not only did Missouri hold them to 11 yards rushing, they had 323 yards rushing. So they ran the ball. They stopped the run. K-State beat South Dakota 34-0. K-State only had 95 yards passing in the game, but they ran for about 300 yards. Definitely, both teams looked pretty good last week. Missouri with a large score, K-State with a shutout. Once again, though, you got to look at competition, especially South Dakota. And then, of course, La Tech is not exactly world beaters. That's what happened last week, but let's figure out how we think this game's going to look. Barbie, I think I'm going to let you go first this time. What are you thinking on the Missouri K-State game?
Yeah, this one was a tough one. This is the one I kind of went back and forth with. I think K-State's going to play them tough, but I think Missouri's going to end up coming out with a win in the end.
Good pick. What you got, eh?
Well, for me, I've always been a type of guy, if you can run the ball, you can stop the run, and you win the turnover battle. Gosh, I sound like Gene Stallings. That's the type of teams I really like. And Kansas State seems one-dimensional. One-dimensional teams can't beat SEC teams. So you're giving me the Tigers points. Yes, I will take them and run with it. Missouri.
All right. So on this one, let's see. I'm going with Mizzou too. I think the SEC looked strong last week. To be honest with you, Missouri could still lose this game and still cover. I got to go with Missouri on this one. You giving me 8.5 points against an SEC team, and it's a team that's not elite. I'm going to take the SEC team. Give me Missouri. I will take K-State to win the game, but I am going to take Missouri to cover. All right, game number 3. App State, Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 17-point favorite. So looking at last week, A&M, they beat Sam Houston 31-0. A&M, 500 yards of total offense. Not a lot of points off of 500 yards of offense. A&M had a couple of turnovers. Probably the reason the score came out a little lower. And it only was 31. They also had to deal with a delay, a very long delay, and that can really mess a team up. Now, A&M did allow under 100 rushing yards. They only allowed about 100 yards passing, so the defense looked really strong last week. Very, very strong defense, which we expected that. We expected Texas A&M to have a real good defense. It's all in the offense for A&M, at the end of the day, to get to where they want to go. Looking at App State last week, of course, they had the heartbreaking 63-61 loss to North Carolina. Super exciting game now. I'll tell you, that was one of the most exciting games of the week. And if you love offense, great game. But App State didn't exactly set the world on fire on defense. This time, Barbie, go ahead and go first on this one too. Let's see who you got.
Okay, so I'm picking Appalachian State to cover, Texas A&M to win.
Okay, A, what you got on App State and A&M?
This, I hear a little dog growling in the background. Oh yeah, this is my DDD section of the program, the double-digit dog. So I've already given away my prediction. But Appalachian State, I believe Texas A&M will win. They're at home. They're the better team. But they've got to outscore Appalachian State by 17 or 18. I don't think they'll do it. I think it's about an 8 or 10 point win for A&M. So I am going with Appalachian State as my double-digit dog this week.
So with me this week, I'm going to shock some people. I'm going to go with A&M to cover. I really think that A&M, and especially Jimbo Fisher, he has a tendency to sandbag, and I think that's what he was doing last week, a little. Obviously, the delay and all that hurt him too, but I don't see that A&M offense being that bad 2 weeks in a row. I think they're going to perform better this week, and I think they will just squeak out about a 17-point win. So, game number 4, we have Tennessee versus Pittsburgh. And this one, Tennessee coming in as a 7-point favorite. Once again, these lines are all coming from Vegas Insider. And the lines are as of 9-5. So, Pitt, last week had the 38-31 win over West Virginia. And then Tennessee won 59-10 over Ball State. Obviously, Pitt with a little bit better competition last week. Tennessee with the bigger win. Tennessee had almost 600 yards of offense last week. They were very, very impressive on the offense side of the ball. Over 300 yards passing from Hooker, and then over 200 yards rushing as a team. So they got it done everywhere last week. Defense looked strong. Only allowed 74 yards rushing and forced 3 turnovers. So Tennessee looked strong on defense last week. Tennessee did get away with a little bit last week. They fumbled 4 times in the game over Ball State last week. Luckily, they only lost 1 of them. So that really helped them. Because you add 3 more turnovers to what they had, that game probably is a little bit different score with 3 more turnovers. Now, Tennessee's not going to lose to Ball State, but it very well could have been a lot tighter of a ball game. I'm going to go first this time. I'm going to go with Tennessee. They're on the road. I know they played Pittsburgh, and the game was awesome last year. It was a really tight game. Tennessee's got, their quarterback coming back. So, Hendon Hooker is one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. Pitt, they're a good team. Found that out when they played West Virginia. Great offensive line, great running the ball, decent defense. But I think Tennessee is just going to be the better team. And I think Tennessee's going to win by at least a touchdown. I could see this being a double-digit game. But that's who I've got. Hey, who you got in that one?
Well, T, this game, I am... it's a tough game to predict for the simple reason Tennessee's so explosive. Does offense carry on the road? With the crowd in Pittsburgh, Pitt has a running game to play keep away from Tennessee. If they get that running game going, limit Tennessee possessions, Tennessee's not going to score as many points. And 7 is a lot of points on the road to cover. So I'm going with the Panthers at home once again to win.
I can see it happening. That's not a heavy confidence pick for me, going with Tennessee, but it is what I think will happen. So, Bobby Lou, what you got in Tennessee, Pitt?
Well, Pitt's won the past 3 previous meets on these games.
Mm-hmm.
If Tennessee can hold on to the ball, which I think they can, I'm going to pick Tennessee to cover.
All right, let's look at game number 5. This should be an interesting one. Interesting line on this, too. Iowa and Iowa State. Iowa is coming off of a dramatic 7-3 win over South Dakota State. It had to be one of the most exciting games you've ever been to. If you like safeties, it probably would be a super exciting game because Iowa did have 2 of those. Okay, now here comes the ugly part. Iowa had 166 yards of total offense for a whole game. 166 yards. Iowa normally doesn't have a good offense, but that is pedestrian in any way you look at it. Pitiful. But at the same time, they only allowed 120 yards. But look at who they're playing. South Dakota State. Not exactly Alabama on the other side out there. Iowa State, 42-10 win over Southeast Missouri. Same thing here, not, look at the competition, but they did have a great performance from their quarterback. He was 25 of 31, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did a great job of taking over for Brock Purdy, and their running game was decent. But when you look at the game, Iowa's a 3.5-point favorite. This is a rivalry game. It's at Iowa. I get getting the 3.5 points, maybe for being at home. But Iowa State looked so much better last week than Iowa did. So it makes you wonder why they have the 3.5-point line for Iowa. So I'll be interested to hear what my cohorts think. So, A, what do you got in the Iowa State, Iowa?
Well, I'm usually all about defense, but I do like a little offense. I mean, when the MVP of the game is the punter that averaged 48 yards a punt on 10 punts, and you get a couple of safeties, that don't impress me too much.
Isn't that a Shania Twain?
In a rivalry game, I'm going with the Cyclones here. The offense just looks a lot better.
Barbie, you want to take the next?
Yeah, this is another tough one as well, but I'm gonna go with Iowa State.
I may surprise some people here. I'm going with Iowa. The main reason, they can't look that bad 2 weeks in a row. They cannot look that bad 2 weeks in a row. Ferentz is a very good coach. He gets the most out of what he's got. It seems like every year they always seem to beat teams they're not supposed to beat. And looking at this, you're like, how is Iowa favored? And typically when I see something like this, it makes me wonder what Vegas knows that I don't. And after last week, that's apparently a lot. I'm going with the Hawkeyes here, but could really see this game going either way. So the next one is what should be a super good, exciting game. We got Kentucky going down to the Swamp to take on Florida. And Florida's coming into this as a 4.5-point favorite. Looking at last week, Kentucky won 37-13 over Miami of Ohio. Of course, Kentucky was without their preseason All-SEC running back, Chris Rodriguez. And you could tell. They only ran for 50 yards last week. But at the same time, Will Levis had a great game. Threw for 300 yards and really took over the game, which is what he needed to do. And of course, Florida had the huge win over Utah. We didn't expect it. Probably some that did, but it really shocked us how good they looked over Utah. And not only that, Florida ran for about 300 yards. They are so much more physical than they were. I was impressed with Florida. Of course, I predicted Utah to beat them, so that made it even more impressive. But I really thought Florida would struggle to get going this year. That's why I thought Utah would beat them in the opening week. Florida, they got it together and they was ready to play. So credit Billy Napier. I'm going to take Florida probably by about a touchdown. So, Bobby, you want to take this?
I'm going to pick Florida.
Good
cover.
pick.
I just don't think Kentucky can contain the run game, and especially in the Swamp again. I think coming off the win against Utah.
Well, Florida ran it on Utah.
Yeah.
So that tells me I think they can run it on Kentucky too.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So
Yep.
I can see Florida covering.
All right, A, what you got?
Kentucky, without their star running back, that really handicaps them. That puts so much pressure on Will Levis to put Kentucky on his shoulders. And although a lot of people think he is that good of a quarterback, I just think he's a little above average. So Florida's running game, playing at home, and Billy Napier's shown it's going to be tough to come in the Swamp and beat Florida under him.
Yep.
So it's going to be Gator Chomp this week. They will cover. Now, maybe not by much, 7 or 8, but they'll cover.
So the next game on tap, we got USC versus Stanford. USC's coming into this one as a 9-point favorite. Last week, USC beat Rice 66-14. USC ran for 200 yards, threw for about 330. They also forced 4 turnovers on defense. You gotta take that with a grain of rice that they were playing Rice. Still impressive nonetheless. So Stanford last week, they played Colgate, beat them handily 41-10. This was pretty interesting. Stanford only allowed 59 yards passing. You see that sometimes in the rushing, but it's rare that you see a team throw for under 60 yards in a game. Stanford threw for over 300 yards, which if you keep up with the Pac-12, Stanford's not typically a team that throws for a lot of yards. They normally are a running team. So that was pretty impressive. Tanner McKee had a very good game. Let's see. Barbie, you want to start?
I'm going to take the USC to cover. Yes, the USC. I think Stanford's going to come in kind of prideful for throwing over 300 yards against Colgate, and I think they're going to come in and USC's just going to have a bunch of turnovers on the defensive side.
Aaron, what you got on USC Stanford?
Ooh, I'm going just about the total opposite way. USC playing Rice, I mean, we really don't have no idea about them. And, of course, Stanford playing the toothpaste. We don't have no idea about them. Stanford finally showing a little bit of passing. They've typically been built like an SEC team where they love to run and play action pass and throw if they must.
Yep.
They've actually got a pretty good quarterback now. I'm not saying they'll win. I do not think they'll win. Lincoln Riley's a good coach. USC has more talent, especially on the offensive side. Stanford will keep this game close. They won't win, but I do like them to cover the 9 points.
Okay, I'm going to go with Barbie on this. I'm taking USC too. But seriously though, USC, I think this is going to be a super high scoring game. I don't know what the over-under is, but I'll probably take the over. I think it could be a 50 to 35 type of game. I think it's going to be really high scoring.
I think a couple of those scores might come from the defensive side of the ball too for USC.
I could see that. Well, considering they forced four turnovers last week, I could see them getting some turnovers and some points on defense. If they get points on defense, I think they definitely win by around double figures. Once again, still early in the year. We still don't know exactly what these teams have. It's the only problem with playing the lesser teams opening week. You really don't know what you got. So as we continue to go and see more of these teams play more and more and play better competition, it's going to make us better. So let's see. We are at game 8? Baylor versus BYU. BYU's at home. BYU is a 3-point favorite. So if we look at last week, Baylor won 69-10 over Albany. Baylor ran for about 260 yards, threw for 314. So very balanced attack. I really like Aranda as a coach as well. Looking at last week, BYU won handily 50-21 over South Florida. BYU ran for over 300 yards, passed for 261. Almost identical numbers for what Baylor did last week, except flip the rushing and the passing. Both teams looked really strong on offense last week. At the same time, BYU held South Florida under 300 total yards and just over 100 rushing. This could be a very, very down-to-the-wire tight game. That's what I'm expecting. And I'm actually going to take Baylor to cover this, and I'm going to take Baylor to win outright. I think Baylor is going to be a 10 or 11 win team this year. As of right now, that's my predictions. They just have more all-around talent than BYU. Hey, what you got on that one?
Well, I kind of like the Cougars here. Playing at home, being a 3-point favorite, they can run the ball, try to keep it away from Baylor's high-powered offense. For some reason, BYU, when they play the elite teams, especially there in Utah and that thin air, they show up. That's why I'm going with BYU here. They're a big game team. So I'm going with the Cougars. Probably not to cover by much, 5 or 6, but at home they will beat the Baylor Bears.
All right, Lou, what you got?
I'm going to take BYU to cover. I think they're going to come out with the win over Baylor.
If you look at the level of competition, BYU definitely played the better team last week.
Yes.
So that's something I looked at, but I'm just such a big Dave Aranda fan. All right, so game number 9. We got Mississippi State versus Arizona. In this one, Mississippi State is a 10-point favorite on the road. So last week, Mississippi State beat Memphis 49-23. Mississippi State allowed 165 yards passing, 129 yards rushing, so right about 300 yards. Arizona beat San Diego State 38-20. Arizona had 300 yards passing and 162 yards rushing. One thing I will say for sure is I do think Arizona is starting to become a better football team than they have been the past couple of years. I think they had really started to slide under Sumlin. I think that they are starting to get back. They're starting to get back where they used to be. We got Mississippi State with a 10-point line here. I will start on this one. I'm going to take Mississippi State to cover. I don't think Arizona's going to have the defense to be able to slow down Mississippi State's passing game. And if you can't slow down Mississippi State's passing game, they're going to light you up. And I think that's going to happen. I think Mississippi State's going to win this game by well more than 10. So that's who I've got. Barbie, what you got in the Bulldogs?
I'm going to have to agree with you and go with Mississippi State.
You think they win big?
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I see that. Who you got, A?
Well, once again, I'm on the other side of the fence. Arizona at home. We've not seen Mississippi State play on the road yet. At home, they are, especially with the cowbells blaring, they are very good. But they are a totally different team when you get them away from Start Vegas. And Arizona kind of impressed me last week. I know it was only San Diego State, but as bad as they have been, I see them turning the corner. I still think Mississippi State will win the game. Yeah. I think it's by a field goal or 4 or 5. I think Arizona will cover, but they won't win. But they will impress a lot of people with this game at home. So Arizona to cover the 10 points.
Now, the one thing I didn't mention was Arizona only allowed 62 yards passing.
I'm still not jumping on the Arizona bandwagon just yet.
I just don't know if they've turned that big a corner in 1 year.
Yeah, that's
but
what I'm thinking.
At the same time,
like I said, I'm not jumping on that bandwagon yet.
Not yet. Once I see them, now if they come in and they play Mississippi State down to the wire,
yeah,
then okay. But
let's take another look at them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so game number 10, last and final game. We got South Carolina versus Arkansas. Arkansas is a 7.5-point favorite. Last week, Arkansas beat Cincinnati, beat them by a touchdown. And last week, to me, Arkansas they had such a balanced attack. They didn't put up a ton of yards, but 223 passing and 224 rushing, you can't get much more balanced than that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. I love a balanced attack because teams don't know what to stop. Okay, South Carolina, they beat Georgia State 35-14. Spencer Rattler had 227 yards passing. Not a great game from him, but it's opening game, first time playing with South Carolina. But South Carolina only ran for 79 yards. That worries me a little. Okay, South Carolina allowed 111 passing yards, which is really good, but they did allow 200 yards rushing, which is not good. Rattler threw 2 picks as well. Not a great performance from him, but he looked much better than what they had last year. I will put it that way. Barbie, who you got?
I'm still sticking with Arkansas. They look really good on both sides of the ball, so I'm going to pick them to cover and win.
I'm a big Arkansas fan, too. I am, too. Who you got, A?
Like I said earlier, I am big on running the ball, which Arkansas can do, and apparently South Carolina can't. And I'm big at stopping the run, which Arkansas can do and South Carolina can't. So, with that being said, and I just love Pittman. Yeah, he's just my type of coach.
I agree.
Arkansas at home, once again, to cover. They did me good last week. Let's go back Hoglets again.
I'm the same way. I'm a huge Arkansas fan. Went into the year as a huge Arkansas fan. South Carolina didn't show me anything necessarily that makes me think that they can come close to Arkansas on the road. You know, Arkansas squeaked out the 7-point win and the cover last week for us. I don't think South Carolina's as good as Cincinnati. So I'm going to take Arkansas. So there they are. That is our 10 picks. We would love if we could get some interaction down in the comments. Put your picks down there. We'd love to go back and forth with you guys on some of these. We appreciate you being in and being on in with us tonight and listening in. Barbie, have you got anything you want to say? Apparently not. Aaron, you got anything you want to say?
Yes, I need somebody besides my cohorts to make fun of me. I know that 2 and 8, that's very glaring, but it's going to get better. Comment. That's what we want. That's what this show is for. Chime in anytime you want. That helps us.
Absolutely. You know, if you like what we talk about, subscribe. Be here with us every week. We're going to be doing predictions every week. I promise they're going to get better. I promise. We're not going to be 2 for 10 and 3 for 10 every week. We're going to turn it around. Be here with us as we do it. So, once again, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time on TNA Sports.